My name is Charlie Savage, and I'm from MapBuzz. We're based down in Denver. I'm also here with Chuck Ray, who's, I don't know, where'd you go, Chuck? Over there. So, let me tell, what I'm going to do is I have about 3 slides, and I'll take maybe 2 minutes doing that, so not too long. And then I'll do a demo of an upcoming Facebook application that we have, and I'll try to do that in about 4 or 5 minutes, and then leave a couple minutes for questions, for anything that people want to ask. So, what's MapBuzz trying to do? Well, location plays a central role in our lives. Right? In a good spot? And it really defines who we know and what we do. And so the idea of MapBuzz is make it easy for people to share what they know about where they live, places they like to go, with their friends and their family and their community. So this is beyond, when you think of maps, there's obviously the traditional use of an address or driving directions. So this is more about user-generated content and sharing it with other people. So so our solution to the problem is MapBuzz, and this is a screenshot of our homepage, which is at www.mapbuzz.com that we started last year. In the last few months, we've been really trying to build up the traffic to the site. Now, what we're focused on is there are a couple of different areas, but as part of the site, we have this idea of communities. So how can social mapping, how can mapping be valuable to these different communities? One of the ones that we have a partnership with is the Colorado Mountain Club. Is anyone a member of the Colorado Mountain Club? You guys don't get out much, huh? Colorado Mountain Club is one of it might be the oldest hiking club in Colorado. It's the largest, and they lead hikes or trips. So it could be hikes or mountain or rock climbing or snowshoeing in the winter. And they do about 2,000 over the course of the summertime and the springtime. And they had a website, that's okay, but it lacked any sort of information about the hike itself or any social component to those hikes. So by that, I go into the mountain club site, I want to see where the hike is, so I kind of get an idea of the distance and the gradient, but I want to see who else, which of my friends have gone on that hike, what are the conditions of the hike, what are pictures of the hike, that sort of stuff. So really adding the social component around that location. So that's the kind of outdoor recreation market. So obviously hiking, and we're trying to get partnerships with other like groups, fishing and mountain biking, etc. Second one I'll mention real quick is something called the N10 community, and this is the idea of where social mapping is useful for events. And the N10 is organization of technology professionals who work in nonprofit organizations, and that's from small 2-person shops up to big ones like United Way and stuff. They had their conference last week in New Orleans, so we worked with them where before you go to the conference, where are all the attendees from, so a location map, but then once you're at the conference, where are the events and parties going to be, what are the different places people went out that evening, and then while during the conference to kind of hook in the N10 community on MapBuzz into things like Twitter, and so that you can say, well, I was at this bar, I went to this place, you should check it out, and so I try to get that out via both our site and through people who are following the Twitter feeds. So that's the end of the slides. Any questions so far? Okay. So let me demo what we're doing on Facebook. So we're going to be rolling out several Facebook applications in the coming months. The first one we're doing is this thing called Map Notes. And to be honest, really what Map Notes was the idea of, okay, let's get our feet wet and kind of see how we can take what we do on MapBuzz and then extend it onto your social network that's on Facebook. So we want to try to do something that's really simple, kind of the essence of MapBuzz. And the idea is this idea of putting sticky notes on a map about different locations and then being able to share them with your friends. So it's a simple application, and we can, I can talk about the technical challenges. One of the things that was a challenge for us is taking our existing website and that functionality and that user base and integrating it to Facebook. It's not an application. There's kind of a two-way street between the two, where you do stuff on Facebook, it shows up on the MapBuzz site. You do stuff on MapBuzz, it shows up on the Facebook site, and kind of how do you manage all of that? So the basic idea is, let's say you're going to an event, and let's say we're going to this Facebook developer garage. And this would have been kind of cool before because the address was secret there for a while. But now that I know where it is, I'll kind of type it in. So I type in the address, it's 1375 Walnut. It'll zoom me to the map to that spot, put that point on the map, And then I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to add it to the map. And so what I've done is just real simple, make it really easy to put this little sticky here on the map. Now, kind of in that balance between lots of features and simplicity, what we try to do is make this a little bit customizable. So when you click on this note, I can go ahead and obviously I can change the text of it like this. And then let's say I want to change the font, so maybe something cursive, make the size a bit bigger. And then let's do something besides this black color. And what I'll do is I'll update that. And so now I have this note here. So here's where the famous Techstars location is. Now, if I just know this, that's kind of well and good. But let's say I want to share it with people who might be coming tonight or one of my friends, kind of below Dave's cover, I guess. So I click here on the share button, and then this will load up Facebook's kind of default multi-friend finder. And one of the technical challenges was how do you do this? You get it kind of in this little window here versus having to go to a separate page and taking the flow out of the application. And I'm going to go ahead and share it with my friend Selenium, who is a test account that we have. So I'll go ahead and send that. So it's going to be shared with that friend. Now, I'm going to flip over browsers. And this is that other account. You can see it's obviously our test account because you can see all the news, all the different notes and news feeds that go up here as we're doing our testing. But what I'll do is I'll reload this page here. So this is the going to be a Facebook homepage for this account. And there's a request saying that someone wants to share this note with you. So I'll click on that, and then I'll get a message that Charlie Savage, me, wants to share this note with you. Go ahead and say OK. And then what that's going to do is if you don't have the application installed yet, it'll go through the whole application installation process. Once it does that, then it registers. So now we know the users, and we have that registered on the MapBuzz website. And then here's that note. So now I've got this note, and I'm acting as this user Selenium, and I can see that is done by me, by my username. And let's say I want to comment on it. Because the idea here is obviously, if you're on Facebook, you want to make it easier for people to exchange information. So I'll go ahead and add comment. That'll open up this little comment widget or form down here, and then I'm here. So that's where the bunker is.
I wonder if David wants that advertised.
Yeah, I think that's a secret, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think that's supposed to be public knowledge.
I'll take it off once I'm done. So then I create that, and so the comment shows up here, and obviously now if you're back, and I'm going back to the other user, so me is Charlie. Let me just move the map around. That'll reload this comment. I can see that the comment's here. Go ahead, click on there, and then we have the comment here. Now, the way that it's a standard Canvas Facebook app where you have the FBML that's up here, and then kind of the way the structure is broken down is then here's IFAM with the maps inside of it, and then you have back and FBL down here on the bottom. Obviously, using FBL makes it easier to use Facebook's widgets and also to fit in better into kind of the look and feel of Facebook, so it's familiar to users. And then, of course, I can go back here, and I can reply to the comment. Time to delete this. I'll go ahead and create that comment, and then to finish it off, to keep the secret, if I click back on the note, you can see that I can move it around. And then also this little red button over here lets me delete it. So go ahead and delete it, and then get rid of it, and now that knowledge is now secret again. So that's that's my 3-minute quick demo. Hopefully that was as quick as I could go. This is our first Facebook app that's not quite ready, but we're just about ready to roll it out. Still a little bit of polishing that we still need to do. And it's interesting, Facebook is kind of an interesting, we want to see how this mapping component can be fit into Facebook. And so this is just one application. We'll have a few more going as we experiment which parts of the MapBuzz site really are the most useful on the Facebook site. And in obviously other social networking sites eventually too. So that's it, and happy to answer questions, any technical questions, or how we built this, or anything like that, if people have questions.
Is
Yep, right there.
that up there in regards
So what the question was about was what sort of privacy controls are on these notes, if I'm correct. The MapBuzz site has, what we have built in behind all of this is a pretty I guess, complete privacy system. The way it works is, by default, a note is viewable by anyone, but it's only editable by you. And then you can, of course, change those, and those are the global settings. We also have how Facebook has friends and friends lists. We have the same sort of idea. And so you can say, so if you're putting down, your favorite strip joints or something, you want only a certain set of friends to see it versus your colleagues to see it, or versus your mom to see it, or bars or whatever. And so you can create different lists of people and say, these are the people who can have access to either view or edit to these notes that you've created. Back here?
Does the information that you have on here end up at the MapBuzz site?
Yeah, it does. Let me flip over. So here's my kind of main profile page on MapBuzz, and I'm just going to, and so this is live on the server. You can see from the URL, and so you can see the URL. You can see the comments that I just added on Facebook are now over here. And the reverse also works. That if you're on our site and someone has a note, and they add a comment to it, then we'll push to that news feed to the Facebook site. And that was one of the things that took a little bit of time, was to get that right. Because I think one of the things that we do different is we have multiple applications, and so of just having one application where if someone does something on the MapBuzz website, you know which application to go to on Facebook. We have we're going to have 3 or 4. We already have a couple, and so depending on what you're doing on our site, it'll be a different Facebook application that exposes it.
Can you, or is there any plan to tie like your Google Maps account to your MapBuzz? Because I know people will, have an already existing database on points of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to go back to the map.
Yeah, one of the nice things about maps is they're a good way of visualizing information from a bunch of different sources. And there's the open source world is fairly active in the mapping industry these days, which is new over the last few years. And the existence of Google Maps has been partially driven that. But there are various standards that are kind of quasi-standards. There's obviously KML, which is a Google standard, but there's also simple things like GeoRSS. And any site that will publish information that way, then we can grab it. So it's like, it's like having a feed reader, but what you're doing is you're reading a feed. It is a feed, but it has the spatial component embedded inside of it. And so the MapBuzz site is all based around Atom. Then the client talks to the server using the Atom format with a couple GRSS extensions. And so that means we can pull information from any site that provides an Atom feed like that.
It looks like your page on MapBuzz has some of the same design elements as Facebook, like what you have inside the application.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? Are you using some of the same HTML in both places?
Yeah, we try to use as much code as possible, and that was actually another challenge. Good point. So this code here, right here, this whole comment system that we have built in, is exactly the same code as this right here. So these are exactly the same. Now the things that will differ is depending whether you're logged into your Facebook account or not, you'll want to change these icons, for example, and then you want to change these links. So if you're on the MapBuzz site, it goes to your MapBuzz profile. If it's on the Facebook site, it goes to the Facebook profile. And the other thing that's tricky is Facebook, well, obviously you guys all know this has the Facebook FBJS. I'm not sure if there's a good acronym for that. But basically they wrap, when you're on the Facebook site, you never have access to the DOM of the browser for security reasons, and they wrap it for you. And so so you really have two choices. You can either have two sets of code, which is one way of doing it, and maybe that's the right way to do it, but that's not the route we went down. We basically have our own wrapper that exactly mimics Facebook's wrapper that we'll use in certain parts of the code so that the code will run in both places.
So did you design the CSS that displays that, or did you reuse some CSS from Facebook itself?
No, that's all ours.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.